Welcome to Open Tabs, our weekly dive into internet news and cultural moments that have been taking up space in our brains and Google Tabs all week. This is us just like venting, getting all of our thoughts out, and you guys can listen along to it. Okay, so first topic that we had to talk about today, because this is Tuesday, March 31st, when we're having this conversation. So breaking news everywhere is Summer House, Amanda and West have confirmed via IG story notes that they are a couple. Okay, thoughts, quick reactions to this breaking news.
Since it is March 31st and tomorrow is April 1st, I'm hesitant to fully believe it because it could be some sort of April Fool's campaign. But if it is true, it's very messy. And, reality TV starts giving us mess. All's right in the world.
Yeah. I have definitely seen online people speculating whether or not it's an April Fool's joke. From the way that it is rolling out today, I know there were photos of like Sierra sitting on the ground in a white dress, like some guy is like trying to make her feel better. I think it's on page 6. So I don't know. Yeah, like, are we going to be postmorteming this as like a brilliant stunt? Maybe. I don't know. I feel like I'm sort of torn right now.
Yeah, I thought it was real only because I wouldn't think that Sierra Miller would agree to like be embarrassed by like yet another guy on Bravo, like for a publicity stunt. Um, but Amanda and West just released their like Instagram story notes app, like statements. And it just read as like very fake to me. And I was telling Megan before this, I don't know if it's because it's obvious to me that it was like Chat GPT written. And I'm like, maybe that's where I'm getting the fakeness from. Um, but yeah, if it's true, then like great. Like, I watch Bravo, I watch Summer House, like, I love the drama, and I also feel like, in the current season that's airing right now, so what happened last summer, Sierra's, like, kinda starting to entertain West again, and I'm not a fan of him for her, so I'm kind of like, he's eliminated as an option if this is true, and I'm not mad at that.
I know we all want more for Sierra. I think that's like the thesis of all this is that what should Sierra do? And like who should she date? Because I think that's more fun and exciting than thinking about the mess of the two that are now allegedly in a relationship. Um, and I think Megan, you had some thoughts for Sierra. What's your advice for Sierra right now?
Yeah, she seems to be at a bit of a crossroads in figuring out what she wants to do next, just beyond the whole Wes and Amanda thing, just like in terms of her career. Like she's been doing more hosting, but even that seems to be, at least like me completely reading into the situation, seems to be Paige's influence of like, that's what Paige is doing. And so then Paige is like, here, you can do this, and kind of giving her an avenue. But I think she needs to figure out what she wants to do. And if she wants to stay on Bravo, she needs to launch a business and figure out like what that's going to be, because everybody on that show has a business at this point that they're promoting. Amanda has her swimsuits, Kyle has his drink, Paige did her sleeping brand. So I think she needs to figure out what type of brand she wants to launch. And I think she needs to date someone who's more established and like a business person, and who's also in like a similar place of like figuring it out. And ideally they can like kind of like not have the same exact audience so that they can share audiences. So if we're just looking at this purely from like a PR relationship standpoint, who should Sierra Miller like PR relationship date next? I would say Tom Brady, because I feel like he's also in a similar place of like what should I do next?
Figure it out.
Trying to be a host. And I think he's kind of her type, you know, looking at her track record of Austin and West. And I feel like he's kind of just, you know, a dude, a guy. He's there. He has experience with dating very pretty women. And I think she's older than Alex Earl. So that would be, I think, a little bit more age appropriate. So that's my advice. Start a brand and date Tom Brady.
I agree. I think she needs to do something. It's I feel like it's like a rite of passage for the summer house people. It's funny. With the exception of like Kyle Cook, who has Loverboy, which he's being very open in this season about how it's like at almost bankrupt, and kind of failing, which is interesting, him being like open about that and talking about it on TV. Um, but I feel like the cast has been, like, slow compared to other Bravo shows where, like, a housewife will be on for one season and now she has a purse line, um, with rolling out their business endeavors. So I agree. I think Sierra has the best style of anyone in the house. I don't know if it would be, like, fashion, but she was also a nurse. So I feel like she has done the hosting, like you said, Megan. She hosted the Cuts Oscars carpet coverage, I believe. Um, and she did okay. It didn't like really pop off, I don't think. Somebody, I don't want to take credit for this. A podcast said this. I will, when I remember which one said this, I will include it in the show notes. They said it felt like a lot of the influencers on the Oscars carpet, it felt like this influencer meeting a celebrity. So them being like, oh, hi, like blah, blah, blah. It didn't feel like interview. Like it just seemed like somebody with like a lot of followers on Instagram meeting somebody else who has a lot of followers on Instagram. Um, but I think if she, like, is really interested in that, like, go for it. But yeah, I feel like she's been on for, like, 4 seasons. Now it's time to, like, figure out what your next move is.
I was gonna say, even hearing you talk through that, it reminds me of, like, advice that I've heard from people who talk about business school. Like, don't go to business school to, like, find yourself. Go into business school with, like, very clear intention and then use the school to get to your goal, right? Like, use the resources of the school, use
Mhm.
your, like, fellow students and your peers to, like, build something, you know, so that it's not like a place to discover or explore oneself. It's more to, like, a means to an end. And I feel like it's funny hearing you talk about that, and, like, I'm actually even thinking of this, like, video. Bethany Frankel actually has a pretty good video out where she talks about Kyle's business and Loverboy and how, like, you know, failing many times is, like, a good thing, and that, you know, she listed off a ton of, like, Bravo businesses of, like, the different Bravo celebrities, and, like, many have failed. And she was like, "This one, and this one, and this one." She's like, "It's just really hard." And she was talking about, again, like, Skinny Girl is interesting because it's also in the beverage space, so she knows it so well, like, you know, Loverboy. And so, um, I feel like this is, like, advice when I think of, like, Sierra too, like, it is pretty clear, like, she got on the reality show, but it's like, but what for? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. You're right, like, should a reality show be, like, the end? No, it should probably be, like, the means to, like, it's like the vehicle, like, the way
Mhm.
it has evolved now. Like, the people aren't just on there to be messy stars anymore. There's always, like, the now what kind of question. And unfortunately, she has to sort of, like, figure it out in real time with an audience in front of her. It's like it's what Addison Rae's been doing, but it's like
Mhm.
just with TikTok, like, found herself huge TikTok fame and now has to become a pop star in front of this audience. She's doing well, you know, but it's just sort of interesting how strategic you really should
Mhm.
be when you're going into these different avenues.
I totally agree. And that makes me think of a Giggly Squad episode, which Giggly Squad is hosted by 2 Summer House alums, Paige DeSorbo and Hannah Berner, who we included this in our Monday Cultural Gems email, just booked a Netflix deal. They are writing a scripted series with Netflix, and I think Amy Poehler's production company is
Oh,
producing
yeah,
it.
I did see that.
And they both talked about how when they joined Summer House, they both had plans. They knew it was going to be a launching pad for them. It wasn't going to be like their end all be all. Paige said like she knew she wanted to do clothing. She didn't know like I don't think she knew pajamas at that point, but like her brand evolved into like being a bed bug and it made sense to launch pajamas. And Hannah was always like her comedy and about her comedy. I think even like Addison Rae too. I've listened to interviews with her because I loved her album. So I'm now an Addison Rae fan, or Addison. I think she's just Addison now. She said she just knew like she wanted to be a pop star always, and she saw TikTok as like the vehicle to get out of her small town in Louisiana. And she basically said, like, I did whatever I had to do. If it was like cringy, embarrassing TikTok dances, I just needed to get out of Louisiana and get to LA. And then I knew I would figure it out.
That is crazy. I think it's also interesting, this idea of like, what does one consider to be their job too? And like, what is substantial enough? Like, in a totally different way, this actually came up on the Toast too, in an episode I was listening to, I think from it was like last Friday's episode. I was listening to it on Monday, and I think Claudia and Jackie were having a discussion around like what Claudia's job is. And like, she's like, well, I'm not an influencer, I'm a podcaster. And Jackie's like, you're an influencer. Like, we are both influencers. Like, what are you talking about? Of course you're an influencer. She's like, no, but like, I might have started like that, but I am a podcaster. And Jackie's like, but you're both. And she's like, no, I'm a podcaster. And so it was just sort of this like conviction of like, that's her identity now. Social media like was sort of the vehicle. And so like this idea of like, is it enough to be an influencer? Is it enough to be a reality star? Both feel sort of like fluid type of roles that like, I don't know how much you can like, maybe it's like the stability of them is not like, the foundation of them is not like reliable. I don't know. It's just sort of an interesting like thing to consider, especially with like it, you know, different ways in, and like where is one going in doing these endeavors, you know?
Yeah, I think it is the stability of it. I mean, if they're smart, like they make so much money if they save and invest, but like people online don't want to see their influencers saving and investing. They want to see like hauls, and they want to follow their like lives that are kind of on another level that most average Americans can't live. But I think Sierra could if she was like, I just want to be an influencer. I feel like Lindsay Hubbard on Summer House is kind of like an influencer. But she worked in PR, so she's like really good at it. And she knows what she's doing. But yeah, I know there were plans that Summer House is a seasonal show. So Bravo was going to do the city to follow their lives in the city the rest of the year. And I think it was going to be like Sierra and Amanda as the two like protagonists that we were going to follow. So who knows how that if like it's Bravo, like live for the mess, like keep it.
Yeah, I
And
was gonna say Sierra should launch her own swimsuit line, and then that's just like the thing now.
Oh,
So just like
love
they're
that.
enemies, and then they can have that be a few arcs, a few seasons of just like they have beef that started with "you stole my boyfriend," but then became girl boss beef, and then you could go back and forth. You know,
oh my God, done. I love
I would
that.
love to do that, and then fans are incentivized to buy. You know, based on who they think is more right.
Like orchestrate the team.
It's exactly what McDonald's is doing right now with the K-pop Demon Hunters meal. So they've taken do you know about this, Melissa?
No. Oh my
So
God.
you know the plot of K-pop Demon Hunters,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
so they've created 2 meals, one that's themed after the Saja boys and one that's themed after the Huntrix girls. And one is breakfast and one is lunch, and, like, the goal is to be, like, who sells more, you know?
Oh, I love that. Oh,
Battle
that's
of the fandoms, yeah.
Oh,
there was
that's
a
so
funny clip I
cute.
saw the other day, and it was I don't know what the movie is, but it's Robert Pattinson. Is that his name? Um,
Mhm.
yeah, from
Uh-huh.
he was Team Edward from Twilight, and he's with Zendaya. And I think they're in a movie together, and the interviewer was like, "So were you like Team Edward or Team Jacob?" And he was so funny. He's like, "No one was Team Jacob." He's like, "Everyone was Team Edward."
I was Team Jacob.
Were you though? Can I ask you? Were you from seeing the films or the books or both?
Um, I think it was Taylor Lautner specific.
See,
I
that's
like,
okay. So
now looking back
that's
on my Tumblr posts, it was very much centric around Taylor Lautner. Yeah.
Same.
so I was gonna say. So that's where like the conversation devolved. Like Zendaya was like, "Well, it was Taylor Lautner, Jacob."
Yeah.
But if you just read the books, you had to be Team Edward. I'm sorry.
Well,
Like,
no, because I will die on this hill.
yeah,
Stephanie was mad that Team Jacob existed and that we all didn't just worship Edward as much as she did. And so she ruined him in the last book. But until then, he's fine. He doesn't get weird until the very end. And like we were already
has
locked
that
in.
like emotional connection with
Yeah,
Renesmee.
and I think she
Yeah,
literally was, like, mad that, like, we didn't like Edward because like, Team Jacob, like, was such a thing, and I think she wanted to control the narrative, so
do you
she's
think that
like,
was a generational thing, Emma? What were you?
I was Team Jacob, and I don't think it was. There was infighting in my
Millennials
friends.
were Edward.
I think it was I if you, like, really I had not like other girls-itis, I'm not gonna speak for Emma, but I very much wanted to be like, "I'm not like other girls." So I feel like
I
that's
had a
part of
smidge.
why yeah, that's why I initially was like, "Ew, no" to Edward, and then once they presented Jacob as an alternative option and also Taylor Lautner is just better than
Yeah, I thought Taylor Lautner was
to this
cuter.
day, I stand by my decision.
Yeah, I thought Taylor Lautner was cuter when I was in high school, and I
Mhm.
also think I didn't have patience even in, like, the 7th grade for, like, the brooding, like, misunderstood guy. I was just like, "This is boring to me," and I'm like, "This guy's so normal," before he turned into a vampire. I was like, "Just date the normal nice guy who has a
Yeah,
six-pack. Are you crazy?"
yeah,
It's
that's what I
also so
did.
true. Like, I love the whole thing of like, who is the real villain? Like trope that's going around the internet. Like how they do that with like I was just watching some clips this morning and it was from Mean Girls and and it was like one of the Regina George monologues, but they're like, well, the real villain was Janice
Yeah,
and how she like set up her new friend to like put her into this crazy situation to like get revenge. You know what I mean? It's like sort of interesting. I love like
my favorite is High School Musical, and they're like, "Gabriella is kind of the villain." Like, think about it, if you're Sharpay, you've been, like, holding this theater department on your back, and then this girl just comes and steals your whole life in 1 year, and everyone's just fine with it? I'd be pissed too.
yeah, yeah, villains. That's where like the villain Disney's going to have a new part, like a new section I think of the Magic Kingdom that's coming out and it's the villains era. Like we're in the
Oh,
revenge
fun.
villains.
I mean, that's smart. I feel like that's, like, the content I see go viral from, like, Disney World. It was I know she got fired, but, like, the evil queen, like,
Yeah.
it's the villains because they have the freedom to have more fun, and, like, go there. But okay, interesting. I guess hopefully in, like, 24 hours, we know whether the summer house situation was an April Fool's joke or not.
And I
Yeah,
think
I
in the
actually think
future
you guys have convinced me. I don't think it is. I think it's real.
Mhm.
And I think that Sierra, this is an opportunity to rise above and use the fame of it as like a Scandival. Like follow the
Yeah,
Ariana Madix,
yeah,
uh, path. Like
yeah.
go book Roxy Hart on Broadway.
She
Go
did.
get those revenge brand deals. The whole
revenge
art of the
brand deals
revenge
is really
revenge.
such a thing, you're so right.
Yeah, the revenge brand deals. Like you can't tell me like the summer house people haven't been like, "Ooh, we need like like maybe this is somewhat orchestrated, but either way, like it's pretty good like
I was
orchestration.
gonna say, one reason I think it's orchestrated is because I actually sent this to Emma yesterday, and it was on something. I don't know what it was on, but Buffalo Wild Wings commented something shady towards Amanda. And they're currently running a promotion with Amanda in it. And I was like, to me, this is tacky because it's like,
Yeah.
you have to be Team Amanda. It doesn't mean that you have to like go 10 notes down for her, but you can't jump in on this discourse against her while I'm literally watching sponsored content from you that's got Amanda in it. But if this was all some sort of Buffalo Wild Wings joke, that would make more sense, that comment.
I mean, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but West posted a video. I never see his content on TikTok, and I got this video served to me a week ago of him watching March Madness at Buffalo Wild Wings.
And Hannah's doing Buffalo Wild Wings. So, like, I don't know. They could be doing some whole meta, like, reality show where they're going to, like, have a showdown in Buffalo Wild Wings and have a food fight, and it was all for that. Or it's just regular drama and Buffalo Wild Wings social.
See,
went off.
what I was going to say, I feel like with most PR orchestrated, like even couples, you know, it's like they all start with some nugget of truth. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure, I mean, again, I keep going in my head that there's like these like Hunger Games war rooms. People are like, okay, let's like, what happens?
There's definitely not.
I know. I'm like, let me into the Hunger Games war room. That's how I feel like Savannah Bananas is run too. I'm like, oh my God.
There's like Wes's group chat who's like, dude, that's crazy, bruh. Like, that's the war room.
Well, I feel like the players are all pawns. And so it's like, it could have been like a PR setup between the two of them. And then, oh my gosh, can you guys hear Teddy? Hi, Ted. I'm upstairs, but Mama's on a call. Sure, you can come say hi really quick. Okay. You guys keep talking on the next topic. Oh my gosh.
Okay, next topic we have on the docket is Coachella. It's kicking off 2 weeks from this Friday. Next Thursday, we will be doing our annual Coachella Ones to Watch of the 3 musicians we are feeling bullish on for this year. But I wanted to see, Megan, I know you historically have been a Coachella goer, but you're not this year. But is there anything like percolating you're seeing? I know it's a little early. We're 2 weeks out, but are there any rumblings? And also, why are you not going this year?
To be honest, I'm just getting old. Hi. Hello.
Hi, Ted.
Like your shirt.
Teddy, can you say hi?
Hi.
What have you been up to?
Where'd you go? Did you go to the park? No, you're being funny. Okay, sorry. Everyone, continue.
Does he have opinions on AI fruit?
Yeah.
Long Island?
Teddy, do you like fruit?
Yeah.
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 He went to his first play, you guys, on Friday. He saw The Lion King.
That was my first movie.
Oh, yeah. That's a good movie.
Yeah.
Scary one.
It was scary.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I cried when I saw it. I was distraught. It's pretty heavy.
The hyenas were a little scary, right, Ted?
Yeah.
Was there dancing?
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of dancing. Okay, Teddy, you have to say goodbye to everyone.
That up for the vlog.
You waved to everyone?
He's
Hi,
definitely gonna have a podcast. He's a star.
Are you eating my food? Thank you.
So I'm just getting old, and it's a lot to go to Coachella. It's like a big disruption on your life and like your body and all of that. And the lineup this year did not warrant me wanting to do that and spend the money. I saw Sabrina when she was in LA and I had pretty good tickets, so I feel like I've like done that. But otherwise I would love to go. I love Coachella. I think it's so fun. It's just such a good place to see. It's just a collection of like a lot of cool people in LA. So you can it's a good place to trend spot and all of that stuff. So it was interesting to see that Pinterest is kind of like, this is what people are searching, like going into it. I do think the things that they raised were a little predictable, but that's just kind of the nature of Coachella anymore. I feel like it stopped being a place that I could reliably go to predict fashion trends a few years ago. And it became more a place where you see content trends or like even trends among the artists and how they're presenting themselves. But Coachella fashion and festival fashion in general have kind of solidified themselves to being like a set aesthetic, but there's not a lot of variability year over year to where anything percolating ahead of time would really tell us anything. So it'll have to be a more of like a hindsight thing of like what is going to like pop from Coachella going forward.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of Pinterest, this morning they released the trends they're predicting for like Coachella overall and Coachella fashion. Yeah, and I think it's like festival fashion is like pretty solidified. Some like by now, fringe and suede and belts. Oh my gosh. I go to Gov Ball every year and they don't it's been like the huge trend, the metal like belts that you wear low on your waist. You can't go in though with those. They like make us go through metal detectors, and I guess you could like use it as a weapon if you like swung it. So like all these girls were taking them off and hiding them in bushes around.
I just want to say too, by the way, those were super popular in like 2006.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like the
when I was
big,
in high school.
thick, like low-waisted belts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's very I mean, we've talked about like it's very 2000s. Their Pinterest is calling that like peep poptimism. And it's very like early 2000s, bright colors, like body glitter. Those, what were they? Those like metallic temporary tattoos you could give yourself, like
Ooh, I had
hair
those on my
feathers.
bachelorette trip. They were
Yeah, hair feathers, all of that. I feel like a new iteration for like 2026. They're calling it Hot Tropic, which is basically like Zara Larson's aesthetic, like tropical, bright, glittery, but still more polished than like early 2000s Addison Rae vibes. But I feel like, yeah, other than
I
that,
also think that the fashion is very heavily influenced by the headliners because people tend to dress in the aesthetic of the artist that they're going to see that day. I know that I did that last year where it was like whatever the headliner was kind of like influenced what you wore that day. And they have Carol G, who's very much of that aesthetic. I mean, it's kind of a Siren Summer, basically. Like
yeah.
it's the same thing. Same aesthetic, just like they called it something else.
One thing that is interesting, Pinterest also announced today what their site activation at Coachella would be, and they announced that it will be phone free. So before influencers can go in, before regular people can go in, they have to lock their phones up. And this was inspired by the fact that Gen Z searches for analog aesthetic and dumb phone were up triple digits for the year 2026. And this is something we've been talking about for like at least 6 months now. I feel like since we started this podcast about like friction maxing and people wanting more IRL and less URL. And if like brands want to connect with audiences, they have to also connect them to like IRL communities, life in some way, shape, form. So it'll be interesting to see how Pinterest does that. I also think like Pinterest did an activation last year and like I got a million videos from creators like going through it. So since this year is phone free, it'll be interesting to see like how they work with creators to like promote it and what that looks like.
Yeah. I'm I just am like interested to see like what comes out of this because so much of the brand value of being at Coachella is that you've got a set of people who are influential, whether that's because they have a lot of followers or because they are the person in their friend group who goes to festivals and then, everyone takes their cues from them, that so much of it is built on their content being seen. That if they're not getting content, what's the word of mouth thing that's going to travel from the festival out into the world that's going to like spread? Like, I could see it being a hit on the ground, but then what does that mean more broadly? And is it worth it to have a hit at Coachella if you're not taking advantage of it as a cultural moment at large, if you're just doing something that's really, like, small and insular? I don't actually know.
You know what's sort of interesting? I've been thinking about this, but again, in sort of like a different context. I think that it's like in the stepping back, like in the grand evolution of this social media experiment that we're living right now, the move has been sort of like the democratization of like access. So like everyone can become a brand, everyone has a channel, everyone can like post whatever. And then you see it hit luxury. Obviously in the past like 10 years in particular, like what has it done to like the luxury market?
Mm.
And then there's like the proliferation of like the fake bag market, blah, 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 blah. And then you see sort of Hermes doing their thing, like making more like movement toward like more exclusivity. It happens with like private clubs, there's like the Soho houses of the world and like more of those type of private member experiences. I even think in my own like small town too, where I live in a town of like a lot of people who are affluent and have access and like post on social media. There's actually just been sort of this movement toward like less is more, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And like almost protecting and like not putting everything out there because there's also this idea of like sometimes like culture just has to go over here and like experience things before it gets like broadcasted. And so it's just sort of interesting. Like I actually think it's very intuitive of Pinterest to try this. And I would think it's actually like I think we will see like very intentional moments of it. Like I don't think it's gonna be like hidden, but I think that they're like reading something between the lines of like what people are craving right now, if that makes sense. It's like we don't want to see the same thing posted everywhere with the same stuff because then it doesn't feel special, unique, or different. Then we just see the same thing. Um, so I don't know if that like resonates with you guys, but I feel like them doing this is actually interesting to me.
I think it's really interesting. I just don't know if it works as a social media. I just don't know if it works for Coachella. Like I think the concept is right. And I think you're right. This is something that's like in the ether. Vanity Fair also at their party, we're having
Mhm.
fewer influencers. We don't want photos. We're putting stickers on people's cameras so they can't take pictures. So I do agree that there's kind of a move towards privacy but not at Coachella. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, that's happening, but not there. And, like, I'm not saying it's not gonna work or it's bad. I'm just, like, interested to see how this goes because it's so antithetical to the goal of the festival and, like, everything that they've done in the past that it's like, "Whoa." And I think it's good to get headlines, and it's very interesting, and, like, I agree. They are tapping into a nascent cultural trend, but I think the execution is gonna be so, so important because I also something that I recommend to brands activating at Coachella is it's a tradition, like going to Coachella. So it's like you wanna have some sort of consistency in how you show up year over year. Like Heineken has the Heineken House, for instance, and like
Mhm.
that's a go-to thing. And that's how you start to own a cultural moment? But if they do something different every single year, that's really expensive for them. And I don't think that the people on the ground are necessarily appreciating it, nor are they building a relationship with the brand being at Coachella. It's just kind of like,
Totally.
okay, what are you guys doing this year? So
Yeah, I wonder if um, who I feel like has actually done a really interesting job of something like that at events has been CNN. Um, totally not like not at Coachella, but yeah, that's
imagine.
I worked at CNN years ago. They, they'd show up at obviously like the Democratic and Republican national conventions. Like, they would show up at, like, again, different, like, primaries, like, different moments, right? And they have this pop-up called the CNN Grill, and it's just so smart. It's this, like, great concept, and it's kind of like a pop-up pub that they create. They, like, the food is always really good. It's, like, really good Pat LaFrida burgers or, like, whatever, and then they would get, like, a brew, and they would partner with, like, a certain, like, beer company on, like, whatever that branding was, and to go to the grill, you had to, like, you could only go in by invitation. So, and there would be, like, events that they would host at the grill, but they also created spaces where, like, CNN employees or journalists or, like, even just, like, people of, like, influence would, if you had a pass, you could go in, and it was sort of this, like, cool space that you had access to. It created, like, an access thing. And I feel like something like that would be interesting. I mean, it wasn't, like, blocked off, like, it wasn't like you didn't have your, like, phone. Um, and I mean, obviously, a lot of spaces are like that at Coachella too, but it just the way that they orchestrated it, it made it feel like there was, like, stuff going on that you wanted to be a part of, if that makes sense.
That's really I've never been to Coachella, but, I was scoping out the Coachella Instagram account, and they're doing a really fun partnership with this stop motion and felt artist, where it's like a series. I think there are maybe 5 or 6 videos up, and it's following a friend group through their Coachella weekend, and their little stop motion felt figures. And they must have, like, repeat it features, like, the food area, and, like, that there must be, like, actual food trucks and stands that are there every year, because there are actual signs, and people in the comments are like, "Oh my god, like, that's the pizza I get every year at Coachella. Oh my god, blah, 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 blah." Um, and as someone who's never been to Coachella, I thought that was, like, very cute and very much, like, to your point, Megan, like, a tradition, like, for these people in the comments. Um, okay, so next topic, is a little more serious than Summer House and Coachella. But in case you missed it,